Welcome back to Making Space with Angela Dragon. I am thrilled to have an amazing, brilliant, hardworking guest with me here today. Shannon Miller of the Miller Elder Law Firm is going to be speaking with us today about a wealth of knowledge that she and her firm have. I'm going to read her bio off of my phone because I want to make sure that I get it right, so bear with me here. So the Miller Elder Law Firm PA is a Gainesville, Florida-based firm specializing in elder and special needs law, estate planning, probate, Medicaid planning, and guardianships, serving North Central Florida. Led by Shannon Miller, who's a Florida Bar board-certified elder law attorney, the firm helps clients navigate aging, disability, and death with dignity through services like wills, trusts, life care planning, and estate litigation. They focus on providing personalized legal services for seniors and adults with disabilities. I know I just gave you a big old word salad there, but we're going to get into at least a few of those topics here today. So Shannon, thank you so much for your time and energy.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you for having
I'm
me.
excited to talk to you more about all of these things.
Excellent.
So to kick us off, tell
Yes.
me a little bit more about, I know some of the really groundbreaking work that you've done that I was researching the last few days is to help prevent elder exploitation. I would love to start with that topic.
Okay. So the backstory of me being very interested in creating better laws in Florida to stop exploitation started with one of my first clients as a private practice attorney. Her name was Miss Maddie. We'll call her Miss Maddie. And she was 94 years old. And her husband had died. And at his funeral, the pastor had offered to help her manage her finances. And so they went to the bank and she added him to an account. So they were on the account jointly. And then he proceeded to take all her life savings, which was $115,000. She had saved her entire life, she and her husband. They had a little home and they had this little savings account. And when she added him, he removed the money and put it into an account with his wife's name on it. And I got the case and I was like, young lawyer, like, we're going to get your money back. This is not going to be a problem. I'm so confident that we're going to be able to recover these funds. Well, come to find out, it was very challenging because the joint account laws at that time in Florida were such that if you added someone to a joint account, even if you didn't contribute money, even if it was only for convenience, then you subjected yourself to them being able to withdraw the funds. So we ended up litigating the case for about a year. It was actually like a year and 4 months. And we were able to recover half the money, and then she died.
Wow.
And it was heartbreaking because she also had some dementia, and it really killed her. You know, the litigation really killed her. So
that is not how we want to spend our final months and years on the planet,
right?
Is in this stressful legal battle.
And and it was like, for me as a lawyer, like young lawyer, you know, this was not justice. And so we started looking at the laws. I joined this group. It was through the Attorney General's office in Florida. And we had prosecutors and we had elder law attorneys and we had, you know, law enforcement officers. And we came together and we started examining the laws. And what the prosecutors were telling us was like, we can get, you know, these cases filed, but the laws are so bad, we can't prove our case.
Wow.
So we started to look at what we could do to make the laws better.
Amazing.
And so in 2012, we changed the criminal laws to take out some of the things that had been previously required. Like one of the things was deception and intimidation. You had to prove deception and intimidation. And if any of you know exploitation, it's done behind closed doors. And the facts are never going to provide evidence of intimidation and deception. So we took that out of the law. We also added things like if you add your name to a joint account and you haven't contributed money to the joint account, but you take money out of the joint account for yourself, it's a crime. So this was Miss Maddie's case in a nutshell. So we were able to change those laws in 2012 and create this whole statutory framework that was much better. And then it started to be implemented. And we realized, like, this is so much better. We're getting, criminal cases prosecuted. We're educating law enforcement officers that these are not civil matters, right? This is no longer about families, taking their inheritance early, which is a lot of times what people would come up against is a law enforcement officer would be like, oh, this is a family dispute. You guys need to figure this out, and no, it's not. So, that was one of our primary goals, was to make sure that people realize this is a crime, just like any other crime. And it's not a civil matter. It's a criminal matter.
Yeah.
And protecting seniors who are vulnerable, because a lot of times what we find is that the victims of these crimes are people who are struggling with dementia, or they may have this exploitable brain, which we'll go into.
Yep.
So it's people who really cannot assess risk. They cannot tell the difference between the truth and a lie, and they're incredibly vulnerable to someone suggesting something to them. And so, in these cases, what we were starting to see was that these criminal cases were starting to be prosecuted more, but we still had this problem. So come along I'm sorry to keep telling stories.
No, this is great. No, people learn the best through stories. I've heard statistics on this. So stories are the most memorable things.
And so Michael McCadden, he wants me to shout his name from the rooftops. He was very proud that he was able to, this is like one that I take into my heart, because what had happened to Mr. McCadden was his daughter had made him believe that he was signing a trust where his money would be protected, and that she would be the trustee for him, and he would be protected. His assets would be protected. Well, when we finally got a copy of the trust, he came to our office and his money was gone. The house that she had purchased was moved into her name and her husband, and he was left destitute in a facility, and then he couldn't pay his bills at the facility, so he actually had to move into a different place. And the VA, he was a veteran, he was a decorated Korean War veteran. And so anyway, Mr. McCadden came to us and said, I don't know what happened, but I don't have my money. And what we found out was that the daughter had created this trust with the assistance of an attorney, and the money had been removed from the trust and placed into her own name and her husband's.
And that was technically legal at the time?
It was not legal.
Okay.
But when he went to when he went to law enforcement, they were like, oh, it's a civil matter. But then he brought it to us, and then we were able to bring it to the state attorney's office here in Alachua County, which is, the state attorney's office here is really good at prosecuting cases that we bring to them. And they were like, yes, we see that this is a crime. So they prosecuted the daughter and her husband. And so we actually were able to get a plea agreement with them. But in the process, we settled the civil case to put the money back into his name. And he got very sick from all of this. We created a no contact provision with the daughter. His family, so his grandkids, no one was coming to see him because of all of this stuff, right?
Drama.
And it was terrible. And I remember with our law firm, we actually did his laundry. We would go because they had alleged that he was a drunk driver. It was all this drama. And in the end, Mr. McCadden, we were able to get the money back to him. And again, he died. And the litigation took about 1.5 years. So we were civilly prosecuting. They had been criminally prosecuted, but it took so long. Right. And it was such a drain on him emotionally.
Sure.
We recovered the assets. He said, talk about me, do something so that this doesn't take so long.
It doesn't happen to someone else in that way. Yeah.
And then he died. And his sister was amazing. She came from California. We helped set it all up that way. But Mr. McCadden's story was not unusual. We had these new criminal laws, but still the impact of the civil process was so drawn out and long, and it takes the life out of people.
Yeah, especially with a family member or the pastor. It's like people that you think you can trust as you age.
Yeah.
And then they take advantage.
So we created new laws. And the new law was something called the exploitation injunction. And this law is incredible. It's unique to Florida. And what it does is it actually allows us to freeze the assets of, if the person's being exploited, we can freeze their assets, but we can also freeze the assets of the exploiter. So in this case, right, we would have been able to freeze the pastor's money. We would have been able to freeze the daughter's money. And that works very effectively.
Of course. That makes more, that makes
right?
sense. Real consequences to
Right?
actions.
So we get this freeze order within about a day. So we file our thing with the judge, and then we get this order back within a day. Then the judge has a hearing 2 weeks later. And during that time, the exploiter cannot have contact with our victim. So we're able to kind of separate.
The manipulation that's causing all of the confusion.
Yes, the influence and the duress. And so then we get to this hearing, and usually the exploiter shows up because their money has been frozen, and they say like, well, I did that, but it was a gift, which still violates the statute. So what's beautiful about this whole exploitation injunction is the exploiter comes in and says, like the pastor did, oh no, she wanted to give me that money. Or the daughter says, no, he knew what he was signing. He wanted to give me that money, but judges, no. And so what happens is we get this order to return the assets to the victim, and we're able to do that in a 2-week time period.
Amazing. Right.
And so we make our people whole. And I'll talk about one of my recent clients where that we would use this for him. And his cousin came in, used a power of attorney to take all of his property, used the power of attorney to actually sign deeds, changing property to himself. And I know, right? It's so bold.
Yeah.
And I'll just one little fact about this. It won't identify him, but he also was a former law enforcement officer, the exploiter in this case. So we brought the exploitation injunction, and we were able to get everything returned. And when he walked into the courtroom and he said, can I talk to you for a minute? And I sat down with him and I said, no, this is exploitation. I'll show you the statute. And he was like, okay, what can we do to make this right? And I'm like, okay, well, you can put everything back. We're still going to have the hearing. We're still going to have the judge enter these orders. So, yeah. So, we've been able to kind of create these laws that actually can be used to protect people, can put money back into their pockets that they lost from these terrible situations. The most recent addition to the exploitation laws has been the scammer legislation that was passed last summer. That basically, if you have an unknown scammer who's, you're sending money to Keanu Reeves, and this is believe it or not, 1 in 5 people will be scammed who are over the age of 70 in the next year.
Wow.
And the average amount of money that's scammed is $17,500. So this is an epidemic problem.
Especially, I imagine, in Florida because of our large senior population.
And that people
including
have
my
money,
parents. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People have money, and they attach to these delusions because there's a thinning of the cortical insula in their brain.
So this is the exploitable brain.
Yes.
This is going to be my next question.
Yes.
You're leading me in exactly the direction I was hoping to go in.
Good.
Yeah, the exploitable brain.
Right.
That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's that part of our brain that's risk assessment.
And
right?
it's risk assessment, and it's also what we've learned through the research is it's an inability to tell the difference between the truth and a lie. And Angela, you're going to love this part because it's really about your intuition. Okay. So as we age, sometimes the neural pathways in our brain kind of narrow or even shut down. And one of the things to go is our intuitive, like spidey sense. And we use this spidey sense throughout our lifetimes to tell when someone's genuine, to tell when, this is not a great situation that I'm finding myself in on this road with the lights out and nefarious, things happening. And so that intuitive knowing can be suppressed as we age because of changes in the brain. And so that intuition, when it's suppressed, you lose the ability to be able to assess risk and to know when someone's lying to you.
Yeah. At a time in your life where it's like the most important time to make sure that you have money for long-term care, for in-home, for health care, for all of the things as people go into retirement and beyond.
And baby boomers, right? They're the big target right now. They have 52% of the wealth in the United States.
Oh, I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah. So they have all the money.
Yeah.
And so they are the targets.
Yeah.
And what
they're vulnerable and they have the funds for people to try to take.
And just all the environmental issues that are happening with the brain. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is, people are experiencing dementia in different forms through Parkinson's or through Alzheimer's disease or traumatic brain injury. And what we know about the brain with the research is that we're seeing these changes in the brain over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, we might not notice huge impacts because the person can still drive a car.
Mm-hmm.
They can still, manage their checkbook. But we have tools at about year 10 of brain changes. So that means you've had these brain changes. You may have a dementia diagnosis, Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the most prevalent, and it's really changes in the brain over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only at year 10 of those brain changes that we have clinically studied research tools to assess it. Right. And that might be a mini mental status exam or a MOCA test. And you might know about these tests because, it's like spell world forward and backwards, count backwards from 100 by sevens. I'm going to tell you 3 objects. I'm going to ask you what those objects were in 2 minutes.
My mom just did one of these tests. I forget which one it was, but she just did one of these. Yes. I don't think my 30-year-old brain would have been able to do these. Like, these are hard.
They are hard.
They're hard on purpose, yeah.
Yes, but what it does is it's been researched and clinically studied that if you can't draw a clock face, then there's some issues in your prefrontal cortex or whatever those areas of the brain that affect your ability to manage yourself. So manage your finances, make decisions about, informed consent with medical decision making. All these things that you have to do to take care of your person and your financial life. Yeah. Those things at about year 10, we have these clinically studied tools that can tell us this person, if they score, lower than a 22 on that MOCA test or mini mental status exam, then they probably shouldn't be driving. They probably shouldn't be managing their own finances, deciding whether or not to have the surgery on their brain, so that we have this research clinically studied, tests, but we don't have a test for that 10 years leading up.
Right. So that's 10 years into already some kind of cognitive decline. So it's like 10 years in, it's like, oh, we can start to notice these changes that happened 10 years prior,
right,
at the beginning of it. So,
yeah.
so
it's really like year 7 to 10 where we see this exploitability. Right. We're not incapacity is what I, like to, that's the legal term is incapacity. You're unable to manage your finances. You're unable
but by then it's more obvious, right?
So
things are missing. It's like the bills don't get paid or something. So what can we look for? I'm thinking of for myself with my aging parents, for me and my team, because we're often in clients' homes that sometimes nobody else sees what's happening.
Yeah.
And for people watching, obviously, for their aging parents. What can we look for as early on as possible? What are the little signs that somebody is starting to have the exploitable brain or that's starting to need our support?
So I'm going to tell you 2 different ways to look for this. The first is, what kinds of things do you see? You're seeing scams. And most people who fall victim to a scam online or, someone comes to their door and says, your tree has canker. Pay us $6,000 now and we'll come back and cut it down for $10,000. And whereas before your family member would have been like, show me your ID, let me get another opinion. I'm not paying you any money right now. No, they give the money, that is one of the biggest signs is even falling victim to small scams because the average number of times that a person will fall victim to a scam is 7.
Wow.
And it's because no one did anything to stop it. Usually it's the 7th time because their money's gone. They can't access any more money. Or they go to the bank and the banker's like, you're getting money out to buy gift cards. You're doing, Western Union to somebody who you don't like. That's the intervention. And usually even then, the person who's attached to the delusion continues to want to try and find a way to give money to this person who they think is satisfying something that is, it's usually so. Typically, what we will see when there is this scammer delusion attachment, it is someone who has figured out what's missing in your little heart, right? So this scammer or the exploiter, the person on the phone is seeking to learn what makes you tick, right? So
There is a special place in hell for these people. I just can't. I'm like so fired up right now, like thinking about like who can do this to old people? Like this is just it boggles my mind that anybody
right?
is capable of something that atrocious.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is as they're trying to figure out, what makes you tick,
Mhm.
they use the phone, they use email, they
Mhm.
use any social media that they can access. Millionaire Match, we had a client who gave away $2.5 million to her scammer on Millionaire Match.
Which is a dating app, by the way, for people that
Right.
don't know. I was on there
Yeah.
for like a week, just out
Yeah.
of curiosity. A couple years ago, I was like, "What is this?" This sounds, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
it's a mess."
But literally,
Wow.
that's how she communicated with him was
Yeah.
through the Millionaire Match phone and text messaging.
Yeah.
And he allegedly was a gold and diamond dealer. And he, was going to access his gold and diamond. He's a Polish citizen. And he just needed to have some money to release the bond of the African country that was holding his gold and diamonds.
Wow. Which is such a to me, that's like classic scammer
Right?
language. But as we age, like you said, if our brain isn't aware of these threat signals,
Right.
and if we're hoping to find love,
That's it.
so she was probably lonely, and she's like,
Her
"Oh, this
husband
man's
had
paying
died.
attention to me.
Yeah, he told her he was going to
He
come
just
in.
needs some help."
Yeah, he's going to marry you. And here's the thing about it with her.
Mhm.
We showed her that the face of the man who allegedly was her lover, was a podcaster in Dubai whose identity had been stolen.
Mhm.
We showed her that the passport he had shown her was actually not a Polish passport. It was a manufactured passport.
Mhm.
It was like we did all the work to try and detach her
Right.
from this. But in the end, what she told me, and bless her heart,
Mhm.
I was sitting in her living room and she held my hands and I was like trying to understand this.
Mhm.
And she said,
Tears.
I know, I'm sorry. Because she brought me to tears during this. She said, Shannon, I just wanted love. And all the money I gave away, I don't regret it because he loves me. I know you don't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah, but she's like, "It's for love. It's okay."
Yeah.
And still, it's
Still.
which to me reminds me of the more present day problem of people falling in love with AI strangers on the like people that
Yes.
aren't even real humans.
Yes.
Like this is a growing trend in many
Yes.
demographics.
Right.
And
But he filled that little void in her heart.
yeah.
And so what was interesting about it, her sons, bless them, I love them.
Mhm.
They were like, we don't want to take away her communication with this. We figure out it's 3 people
Okay.
that are playing the role of this scammer for her. And they're like, she gets so depressed when she doesn't hear from them.
Yeah, because it's still communication. It's still her receiving attention and love.
And he's still trying, well, whoever he is, the 3 of them are still trying to find ways to access her money. Like we had a guardianship, we had to really lock her money down and protect her from this. But, in the end, we were like, what is more important is her happiness. And so she still talks to these 3 guys.
Oh my gosh.
And they're still trying to weasel ways.
Of course. But they're giving her attention, so it is meeting a real need for her, even if it's not real.
I know.
I feel so conflicted about that, Shannon.
Right?
It's like
I know.
because my very limited understanding
Yes.
of dementia and Alzheimer's and other cognitive decline
Yes.
issues is that sometimes it's actually best to not tell the person the truth.
Oh, yeah.
Which I have a really hard time with, but I know
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like if somebody's confused, and I actually saw this on one of your podcasts that I
Yes.
was binge watching last
Yes.
night. It was fascinating.
Oh, good.
About, if somebody's confused. and they're like,
therapeutic
But
lie.
my house, what about my house?
The
I want to go back
therapeutic
to my
lie.
house.
Yeah.
And it's like the therapeutic lie.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that term.
Yes.
But it's like when somebody is that confused, we don't want to cause them more distress.
Right. The anxiety.
So the most compassionate thing we can do is go with what they're talking
Yes.
about.
We're going to go home in a minute. But first, let's get your shoes on.
Yeah.
First, let's go brush your teeth today.
Yeah.
I want to show you my pictures of your grandkids and see, show you what's, it's like
It's so
you go with
counterintuitive
the
to do
line.
that, though.
I know.
Right? 'Cause it's like we want to
I
correct them and be
know.
like, no, we want you to know what's actually
No.
happening in the world.
Right? Because the anxiety that it creates. And for Our Lady, right?
Mhm.
We'll call her Irene.
Mhm.
For Irene, the idea that he doesn't love her anymore was harder for her to bear than losing $2.5 million. Right?
Wow.
And so for her to hold on to that dream that he's going to sweep in one day and with all his gold and diamonds from Poland.
Yeah.
And, they're going to have trouble communicating at first, but then they'll figure,
But the fantasy is keeping her alive.
yes,
Probably
yes.
literally. Like it's
Like
giving her energy and joy.
she
And
just likes to think about it.
yeah.
And so like it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing, but at the same time we have to protect people.
Exactly.
And so the way to do that for us is to lock her money down. The sons, they lost a ton of money. Like, she doesn't have that much money left. So like we got to protect it because she might need it, And so it has been a challenge. But back to this new legislation. So this scammer legislation that we passed this year in Florida, the first of its kind in the nation, it allows us to use the communication tool that's being used to exploit our person, in this case, Millionaire Match, to send them the notification that we're going to lock the money down.
Okay.
Right. So we're able to then immediately protect.
Let them know, like, hey,
right,
you can't do this anymore.
Right.
We are stopping you.
Or show up in court.
Yeah.
Come on in.
Show your face.
Right?
Yeah.
We have a hearing in 2 weeks, Mr. Exploiter. You come on in and claim that this was a gift.
Get them.
So yeah.
Greetings, Dr. Eleanor Robin here, and this episode I'm calling Paper Part 2. Last time I talked about what you want to keep. This time I want to talk about what you want to get rid of and how to get rid of it. And in my perfect world, we would have a way to monetize all of the stuff that's laying around in our houses that we don't need. And I talk a lot about that. But paper is not one of them. If you can come up with some brilliant idea about how to monetize the paper in your house, please let me know, because I don't have it. In fact, I think the first thing that we all need to do is go out and have a shredder. I personally have 3 shredders because I like to have them in various rooms so that when I have something to shred, like part of the mail or something, I can just shove it in the shredder. You can get a shredder at Amazon, Office Depot, any big box store for in the $30 range. And a shredder is a really good investment if for no other reason. The shredder is also a way to help protect you against identity theft. There are some things you don't want to shred. We talked a little bit about that last time. Anything with historical significance in your life, you really don't want to shred. Some things that you might not want to shred, for instance, if you have your parents' marriage certificate, even though they've passed on, you may want to keep that. You actually might even want to put that in a frame and frame it. There are some things, some papers that you might want to take a picture of before you decide to get rid of them. And all that is okay. Keep a digital record. If you are so organized that you scan in a whole bunch of papers, that's great. Certainly keeping your medical records. I keep medical records. I am not that organized that I scan them all in, but I keep everything because you never know when you might want to go back and look at something, even though a lot of it is already electronic inside the MyChart or whoever your doctor is using, whatever method they're using. So how do you get rid of paper? Well, one idea is, now you're not going to do this now because right now we're in a no burn zone because we haven't had rain and we've had wildfires. But I do have a friend who once a year holds a fire, and he builds a fire in his yard. He lives out in the country. He builds a fire in a fire pit, and he invites people to come over, and we bring records over, and not records you listen to, like paper records, and we throw them all in the fire, and we watch our stuff all burn. That's one way. If you're not into shredding, you might want to burn. But back to shredding. You can find an organization that does shredding. The ARC in Gainesville does shredding, and I'm sure no matter where you are, there is some organization that will do shredding. UPS store does shredding, and they do have a coupon online, and Office Depot does shredding. Right now, they have a coupon for £5 free shredding. So I think we are going to do one more time, part 3 of paper on the next episode. See you later.
It's interesting because this has actually been in play now for almost a year.
Mhm.
And have we ever seen an exploiter show up who was served through the scam protocol? No,
Of course. Yeah.
no. So
'Cause that's the whole way that they function is in the
right
shadows and
in the
not being
shadows,
seen.
and we're getting better. We're getting better. We actually have some laws in Florida now related to cryptocurrency where we're able to use the Attorney General's office. And I hope any exploiters aren't listening right now, but basically we can lock down the crypto wallet. And a lot of times what will be recovered through the Attorney General's office is not just our victim, but also the assets of other victims that maybe haven't made the claim through the Attorney General's office. So we're locking down these wallets that sometimes have millions of dollars in them. And we might be recovering $10,000 for our victim, but then we are able to like secure additional funds from the exploiter and they never come and claim it. So then we can use those monies to help educate the public and engage in law enforcement and create more tools to help more people with these scams and starting to figure out how can we track scammers? You know, how can we start to do better with protecting from the law enforcement side? And I think a lot of that is really resource driven because we just can't, there's so much exploitation. It's such an epidemic that we don't have the resources to, like if you get scammed, do you report it? Maybe, but you kind of know as a society that nothing's going to happen. So like, you're never going to get your money back. So why even bother? So we're trying to create more resources from the exploiters themselves.
Yeah. Amazing.
Right?
I love this.
Yeah. So that's coming and we're starting to get really good at locking those wallets down and creating more resources from the law enforcement side, which is what we need.
I love that. One thing you said a few minutes ago is thinking about I think, and this is just a topic of personal interest of mine, of the loneliness epidemic.
Oh my God.
And
so bad.
And I think because of our work, so my team and I specialize in decluttering and downsizing, mostly for seniors as well as the adult children.
Bless you. Bless
Thank you.
I see in the before and after.
It is not for the faint of heart.
No.
And the pictures only tell like this much of the whole story.
Oh my gosh.
It is. Yeah. My team, thankfully, is amazing and wonderful. And they all have an extraordinary amount of patience for the process of decluttering and downsizing.
And let me comment for a second because, we do this practice called life care planning and we use elder care coordinators who are social workers and nurses and we kind of help people through the process of aging and dying, right? That's our whole, we really are moving more towards doing better with aging, chronic illness and death and trying to make that a process with less suffering. But people are attached to their stuff.
Oh yeah.
And Angela, what you're doing is so important because what we have found is that people don't want to move out of their homes because of the stuff that they've accumulated. And this attachment to stuff and this idea, I think it's called, is it Swedish death cleaning? I love it.
Yeah.
Because what it does for your family is it allows you, first of all, to be free of your stuff so that you can relocate it or downsize if that's what you want to do. But the other thing about it is the overwhelm that when you die, your family then has to go and figure out which stuff is super valuable that they need to keep and which stuff didn't have that much meaning to you. So if you can do it early with Angela.
Yes.
Please do it.
And then we find the treasures, right? And then we find the treasures of like, if there are 1,000 things in a house and 5 treasures, once that person has passed, usually nobody knows what the treasures are. So it's just like clearing out the whole house. And we do the whole home clear outs after someone passes too, and try to decipher what might have been meaningful, but oftentimes we have no idea. So one of the things that we love to do with clients is to actually be like, okay, let's put a little label on this thing. This was, if this was like, for example, I have handmade pottery from my great-grandmother.
Oh my
2 pieces. My great-grandmother's hands, Olga Dragon. she made these things in my
I
home.
love
And I'm like,
that.
I don't have that. I'm kind of a minimalist, except for, I always say, except for books and earrings, which I collect with reckless
Yes.
abandon.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm kind of a minimalist in my life and the number of possessions I have in the world.
Yes.
And I have a few treasures. So it's like, that's super important to me.
I love that.
That somebody knows that these are not just random things from a thrift store. These were made by my great grandmother, and I want somebody else to hopefully treasure them when I'm gone someday.
Yes.
So that's part of the magic of the work,
Right.
is being in people's houses and helping to decipher while they're still mentally able to do that and have the emotional capacity to do that. Ideally, I mean, I would love to see all of our clients, Shannon, literally like 10 years prior to when we actually see them.
Yeah, I know. That's what we need to work on.
That's what we need to work on. Just telling people, like, don't start when you're 75. Start when you're like 60,
Yes.
thinking about this. And so actually, I think you'll appreciate this.
Yes.
And I don't think I've actually said this on my podcast yet. So I call it the bell curve of stuff.
Okay.
So it's like when we're in our 20s and 30s, it's like maybe we're in college, we have very few minimal possessions. Usually we're in like a dorm or in a small apartment with roommates, and we don't have that many physical things. And then 30s and 40s, like maybe we have kids, and then suddenly we have lots of stuff, and then we get a bigger house, and we're collecting.
Yes.
And then at some point, 50s, 60s, it's like, oh, wait a minute, this stuff feels like a burden. It's too much stuff to manage. It's too much stuff to clean. We're empty nesters, whatever the situation is. And then suddenly it's like the bell curve of stuff. Then we're on the other end, and it's like, wait a minute, now that I have too much stuff, what do I do with it? How do I process my emotional attachment to it?
Right.
And what we see all the time, like I'm thinking of a specific client right now who's in her mid 80s in a giant house, mostly by herself.
Yes.
And she's lonely. She's deeply lonely. And my team and I are like, to me, and that's part of, I think, the magic of the work that we do. And it's not just home organizing, right? Like I feel like I need other words for what we do. It's never just home organizing.
No.
Literally ever. So
it's like reducing your attachment to unnecessary rocks that you carry around like a backpack.
Yes, it's really processing our emotional attachment to things. And to me, one of the gifts that my team and I give to our clients is giving some new energy to their home. Like we're clearing out space. And we're bringing in energy. And like, we love our clients so much. I'm so grateful for my team because they just have huge hearts.
Yes.
Sometimes we get in too much of like trying to mother people or trying to like,
help
be
them
like their surrogate
change
daughters
their life.
or it's like, but we oftentimes, because of the transformational nature of decluttering and downsizing, oftentimes we see that, like even just yesterday, one of my lead organizers on the big project with the client in her mid 80s texted me and said, so-and-so was able to actually, like, she went out of her house and was able to do some social thing today that she usually doesn't do at all. Like, she's so isolated in this big, beautiful house that she loves, full of a lifetime's worth of treasures.
Yes.
But it's because of, to me, my perception, my unofficial psychoanalysis of this person, is that she's so attached to her stuff and so attached to her house that she doesn't see what's and she could afford to go to Okamic or the Village or one of these like amazing, like I would live in those places if I could right now.
Definitely.
Like I
Me
would
too.
15 Zumba classes a day. Like this sounds amazing. It's like I don't think because of the attachment to our stuff, that's to me the big blockage oftentimes of seeing what life is actually possible when we figure out what is that transition. And so I have been talking to that client specifically and lots of other clients similar to her over the years of just being like, well, what might your life look like? What is the post-retirement life, right? Like, what is your life in the next year or two? And how can you make sure? And because I'm also a functional health coach, even though I'm not actively practicing coaching in any major way right now. But I have a whole certification in functional health coaching. And so I always think about the whole person. Are you getting enough sunshine? Are you getting enough social connection? Are you getting movement that's joyful to you? Are you eating whole, nutritious food? Right? And this client, I asked her those and she said, all of the answers to those questions are no. And she's this like vibrant person that still has great cognitive function. She's still working part-time. Like, I'm like, but you could have this beautiful life and like you've worked your whole life. You deserve this.
And to this point, I think what's interesting, and this is my experience in doing the life care planning model, when we can get people to detach from their stuff. So whether it's like what happens often, and you could probably speak to this, we will say, we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to get a storage unit and we're going to put the things that are super valuable to you. And it becomes part of this process where we move things to this air-conditioned senior access storage unit. And then, I've had a number of clients that we did that with, and then we moved them to the village.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, I'm going to go visit my stuff and they never visit any
They
of
never
their
do.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been detached, and now they realize they can let it go.
Yeah.
And the kids don't want it. Like nobody
No.
wants their junk.
We have those hard conversations.
I know, from
all the
India
time.
or whatever, or the 17 photo albums. And it's
Or
like
the big heavy mahogany furniture.
Right.
It's like really good quality.
Right.
They paid good money for it
No.
50 years ago,
Right.
30 years ago.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's the opportunity. So I would encourage people as well. Look, if you can detach from a lot of it, move some of it to a storage unit, trust me, you're never going to want it eventually. But put it there for 6 months to give you that little security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Get yourself to the place where you have the freedom and the ability to move, eat good food,
Have friends, have new friends, find new hobbies.
friends.
Find new hobbies.
Yes, get a new boyfriend, get a new
Yeah.
girlfriend.
In
Like
real
all
life,
these-
not on the internet.
Right, right. And I mean, I was just at the village the other day, and they track bluebirds. Did you know that?
No, I'm a birder too. So I'm like, that sounds...
They work with the University of Florida, the carpentry team. So this is people that live at the village.
Mhm.
They make the right size opening of the bluebird house. They put them all over campus, and then they measure the number, and they actually go
So
and
they're
they
doing
have
citizen science.
Yes.
Too.
Yes. Right?
That's
And they
my
have-
plan. That's
they-
my plan. That's
right?
what I want to do when I'm 20, 30 years from
They
now.
have an aviary there. They have a residence garden. Like, you can have
It's a rich life.
a second life
Yep.
for yourself. And
But you got to let go of your big house and your stuff.
you got to,
or even your small house, just your stuff, whatever that thing is, letting go of it. You have to free up that space.
Yes.
Physically and mentally, energetically, spiritually, emotionally. You have to, and that's hence my podcast called Making Space.
Yes.
Right? We're making space for that life that we really want. We're making space for who we're becoming.
And I think another way to analogize this, and I have done this with clients when I'm trying to get them over to do the decluttering, is you are carrying your stuff around with you like a bag of rocks.
Yeah.
It's like a backpack of rocks that you're moving. When you go to the restaurant, you're like, well, I need to get back because of the 700 plants that I need to water.
Mhm.
Or, I need to check on, it's like the hoarding mentality. And you can kind of like just let that backpack go, and the freedom
It's
that
so
it gives
liberating.
you.
Shannon, I wish you could see our clients, and I still at some point I want to have like a film crew for like the final day of a
love
project,
that.
because the clients, it's like you can see
You can see the
their
lift.
whole being is there's a lightness of being, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel liberated, right?
Yes.
It's liberating ourselves from our stuff so that we can enjoy that next season of life, whatever that
Yes.
is, whether it's like divorce or transition or loss or
Yes.
grief. Like we
Yes.
support people through all kinds of, not even just seniors, but just
Yeah.
when there's a big transition, that's oftentimes when our homes become chaotic,
Yeah.
like a health challenge or a crisis, any of those things, like trauma, whatever. So if we can learn how to let things go,
Yes.
then we can move into that next stage with more ease and more joy.
And I think on this issue, and I don't know how to like convey it to people, but even just your home, you have this attachment to your home. We have a client who was at home and his wife had passed away, and he's out trying to manage the pool. Something got caught into the pool filter, and he's by the pool, and he's has some issues with stability walking, and he fell into the pool and he hit his head. And granted, everything worked out. He's fine, but we really had a lot of trouble getting him into a new placement. But he's in the village.
Mhm.
He's in independent living. And when I went to see him this week, and I was like, what do you think about selling the house?
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm fine with it. This is my house now.
Yeah.
This
Sometimes
is
they
where I
have to
live
make the
now.
transition first.
Yes. And like at the first week, he was like, I need to go home. I need to go home. I need to go home. But we were like, let's just stay a month.
Yeah.
Let's just stay a month.
Yeah,
And
give
he
it
was
some
like,
time.
okay.
It's a huge adjustment,
And
especially
now-
if somebody's been in their house 30,
Right?
40 years. Like that is a massive adjustment of like all the familiarity, all of the attachment to home.
Yeah.
And that's valid, right? It's
Right.
valid that of
It
course we want
is.
what's familiar. And when we make that transition, although, so you did say something earlier that I want to address.
Yes.
So we almost never recommend somebody getting a storage unit.
I know.
And I know, I like that. And that's, I'm not like 100% opposed to it. Like,
I
I do
don't-
think there are circumstances where it
Yes.
does make sense.
Yes.
But
Yes.
9 times out of 10, like the storage unit, if I wanted to just make money and had
Yeah.
no ethical compass,
Right.
moral compass,
Yeah.
I would be in the storage unit business
Yes.
because it's a massively
Oh
growing
my
industry
gosh,
in the
it's
United
crazy.
States because of our consumerism habits and
Yes.
capitalism.
Yes.
I could say more about that. But what I often see is that somebody will just put stuff in a storage unit and then they just have a monthly expense for the rest of their
Right.
life. Or their kids
Absolutely.
have the monthly expense. Or
Yes.
somebody, there's a
Yes.
monthly expense and there's a bunch of perfectly good, usable stuff
I know.
that some poor college student would, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like I've
Yes.
always, and my team and I go to great lengths to try to redistribute
And
things in the
I
world.
love that. But
It's a lot of work, but it's
that
worth it.
one set of, married couple
Yeah.
that the only way they're going to
Yes.
move.
Yes. If that gets somebody to actually make the transition because that they're like, that's the
Yes.
only option if I get a storage unit.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
If there's a deadline,
And
like
we
3
have-
months, 6 months,
Right.
we're going to check back in and be like, do we even
Go
know
and
what's
visit.
in there?
Right.
Right. Because people do say, I want to go visit my
Yeah.
stuff. I have these memories,
never
et cetera.
do.
And
Yeah.
then they don't.
No.
And then they
And we
don't.
had this couple, and literally they were in their 90s.
Mhm.
And they had an upstairs and a down, and it was, problematic. And they were then like, well, we'll just do one of those stair lifts. And I'm like, no, you guys, this is ridiculous. But
it's hard. You can see it from the outside that you're like, this is a
Right?
terrible idea.
I know.
How do I communicate this? Well?
Yes, but it took 2 years for us to get them to put the stuff in the storage
Yeah.
unit.
Yeah. I have clients call me like 5-10 years later. Now that I've owned the business for 12 plus years, sometimes it's like, they're like, oh, I met you 8 years ago at such and such. And my
Yes.
daughter has been recommending you for 5 years. Like, these
Right.
are real, it's like very,
Yes,
it
it
just
takes
takes
time.
It takes
Yeah.
time. Baby
No,
steps.
I love what you do.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, we only have a few minutes left.
Okay.
I'm thinking of, are there any other questions that I want to cover? I know we talked a lot about the exploitation,
Yeah.
how to prevent it, what are the signs
Yeah.
to look for.
Yeah, let me go back to, one thing that we kind of hit on, but, what are the signs when someone's being exploited? And, it's the initial stuff is like the scams, but it really is you noticing
Mhm.
that your parent or loved one is no longer, first of all, they're telling their private information to everybody,
Mhm.
right? They don't seem to have a privacy concern anymore. And they also become more disconnected from their intuition. So they don't seem to do things that are reasonable.
Hmm.
They will make mistakes that just
That just don't make
intuitively,
sense. Yeah.
right? It just doesn't make sense that they would do that. And then if they are actually being exploited, the things to look for are a little bit different.
Mhm.
It's going to be then a shutting down of the privacy where they might change banks, right? They might change their cell phone number. They might have a new friend who you've never met. But this friend isn't telling them they should change financial advisors. All the access that you had previously has been shut down, like weirdly.
Yeah.
And when you ask about it, they get mad.
Oh, like they get
right?
defensive.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because the other person's already in their brain,
Right.
telling them like, don't
And they're-
trust your kids,
right.
or whatever.
They're isolating this person. And so a lot of times, like we had a situation where this neighbor had done all of this stuff and got new power of attorney. And he actually built a fence around Our Lady's house. And only he had the key to the lock to open the fence.
Wow.
We did an exploitation injunction in that case and we were able to unwind it. And what happened was, which was really great, was as soon as we separated him from her using the injunction, because the judge will enter an order saying you can no longer have contact with this
Mhm.
person. And we got her back into the kids, into the family fold. And we were like, no, he stole all your property and $25,000 from you. We were able to help her get back on track. And then she did have insight into this delusion that she had fallen under, that her kids
Okay.
were stealing from her and all this other stuff. So sometimes you can kind of redo it.
Yeah.
So if you think your parent is being exploited, one of the recommendations that I have is, think about talking to an attorney if there needs to be a guardianship, making sure that the assets are being watched. There's something called the Careful app. And it is careful with 2 L's. And if you want to go on their website, it's getcareful.org. I'm not paid by them. I love them. We use them in our firm. But what they do is they help monitor assets and they will send out a notification if you pay a bill twice, if you forget to pay a bill. And if you're sending
Amazing.
money, it's the Careful app. If you're sending money to a nefarious recipient. So it's like a monitoring service, but they don't, you're not handing over the reins. It just sends out a notification when
Right.
things
It's just
are bad.
keeping an eye on your accounts.
Yeah.
And I actually heard a statistic recently that even people, I'm in my mid 40s, even people in like their 20s, 30s, and 40s
can be
oftentimes
exploited.
can be exploited. And
Yeah,
they're also
and
sometimes
scammed.
like paying twice for Netflix by accident, or for
Right.
Spotify, or for even just like little things.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
most people in America are not paying attention to their money like I think they should. So
They are not.
having that app
Definitely.
seems like I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a
It
wonderful
is.
resource.
It's great. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is use mantras. So if your parent falls victim to a scam or exploitation, make sure everybody in their circle does the same thing that exploiters would do, which is to repeat a mantra. Johnny stole $20,000 from you. We're going to keep you safe. And then everybody says it, you know? And so then that becomes their truth, because remember, they have disconnected from intuition. So they don't know the difference between the truth and the lie. But whoever repeats the same thing the most, they attach to that.
Right. So rally together with other loved
With
ones
the truth.
to say the truth over and over again, so they can.
Johnny stole $20,000 from you. We are going to keep you safe, you know? And then that becomes the new truth. And then when somebody else tries to come along, they're like, oh, no, 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 no. Right. Johnny already stole $20,000.
The truth.
But I know my family's going to keep me safe. And so you're out.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that sounds really helpful. I'm a little overwhelmed thinking about all of this and myself, as, you know, with my own aging parents, and thinking about our clients too, and our responsibility, because I see my team and I as having great responsibility.
Yeah, you guys are in there.
And I often joke with my team, and I all say this: we're like, we probably know our clients better than their therapists do, because we are in their house, right? Like we know, we are in their homes, we see how they're actually living, we see what's actually happening in their lives, and so to me, that comes. There's great responsibility comes with that.
Definitely.
And so I want to make sure that my team and I are prepared, as well as me, for my own aging parents and for my friends and their aging parents, et cetera. I want to make sure we're as prepared as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's so prevalent.
Yeah.
The exploitation and scams. And truly, it is, we have more and more people living in silos where they are estranged from their family members and they don't really trust anybody, or they're an introvert. Like they've never really been a social human. Now their brains are changing. They really do. People like you who are going into the home and seeing what's happening can be the only flag going up. Yeah. And so, you know, contacting Adult Protective Services and, you know, also reaching out to family members, you know, who may be on the fringe, but, you know, if this person is spiraling and they're not caring for themselves, sometimes bringing in that even, you know, on the fringe family member.
Even like cousin, niece, nephew.
Neighbor.
You know, just somebody that loves this person.
Yeah.
Somebody that
someone
cares.
who has a relationship with this person. It's hard, but solo agers have become one of the biggest targets for exploitation scams, but also just suffering. They don't have anyone to help pay the bills. 85% of people will become unable to manage their finances before they die. So you got to have somebody.
Yeah.
You know,
we
like
need each other.
There's not a question whether it's going to happen. It's likely going to happen. So we really need helpers in our lives as we age, get closer to aging and death. And also, you know, just briefly on the death issue, like dying does not have to be a horrible suffering event. Like we have learned in society how to die better. And it's just connecting people with the tools to make sure that their death event is one that they choose, and making sure the rituals are in place, making sure that, you know, the people that they want to be present are there.
Yes.
So it is super important to have a healthcare surrogate and a living will for hospice. And also just in Florida, it's essential. You need to have these documents in place so that your plans are known of how you want to die. Yeah.
I'll tell you a story off camera after that about my own health journey that I've already told to podcast listeners anyway, but I'm more aware of that now than I was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So and it's such peace of mind to have a will and to actually have those things in place and to think about those things. I think you and I, just from watching your own podcast, I think you and I probably have a similar relationship with death, where I feel very comfortable talking about death.
So great.
And
good.
In so many ways, it's helpful and helps me live more of my life.
Oh yeah.
Thinking about death is like, that's the reality of embracing impermanence, of like, we're here temporarily. That gives me a sense of urgency to live my life in the most fulfilling, abundant, connected way. So I think talking about death is a really healthy thing. I know not everybody agrees with that.
No, it's great.
I think
I talk death
really
all day. People get sick of hearing about death.
Yeah, same.
Because the fear of it, I mean, when you've been through enough death events, or if you've seen it close up, you realize that it is not a scary thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Doesn't
scary
have
when
to be.
people are in suffering, but it's really suffering is optional
Yeah.
at this stage in society. We really don't, society is not, we don't have to suffer before we die. There are techniques and hospice and all kinds of tools that we have
We
available
just need
to
to
us.
be well resourced
Yeah.
and connected
Yeah.
to not have to
Yeah.
suffer so much or
Right.
reduce our suffering.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shannon, in closing,
Yes.
where can people find you and your firm?
Okay, so we are the Miller Elder Law Firm, and we are just around the corner. But if you go to our website, it is themillerelderlawfirm.com. You can find out all the information. We have a YouTube channel. We're pretty big on social media. And again, our podcast, we do a lot of different things about aging and dying better. We've talked about Parkinson's disease. We had Betsy Pepin talking about, fitting into boxes. We've just had a whole series on empower lifestyle medicine and their tools with women who are in perimenopause and menopause and hormone balancing. And so, yeah, things about women's issues. We try to be a resource for aging and dying better. So yeah, join us on the journey. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. And I will be diving deep more into your podcast because even like
Yes.
the perimenopause episodes, I'm
Oh
like,
my
this is not relevant to what I'm talking to her about
Yes.
tomorrow. But last night, it was like
Oh my
11
God.
o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such important information for me and my loved ones and all my friends right now.
What's really interesting about that episode, I actually have had more feedback from people who don't even live in Gainesville. They say, like, I had no idea about vaginal estrogen and the importance of it for someone in their 80s, 90s, their parent who has chronic UTIs, but also for younger women who are feeling like they're out of balance in their mid 40s and young 50s, who are not yet menopausal but perimenopausal. Like, the hormone balancing can be huge for women at that stage in life. And
I love that we're having more of these conversations in the world now. Like my generation and younger, it's like we are all over Instagram. Like, what is happening with my body?
Yes.
So, but thank goodness.
Yes.
Like our parents' generation and older, they had nobody to talk to about these things.
And they missed the boat. Like 25 years where we had this women's health initiative that everyone believed was the truth of hormone, and it really was a lie. And so, unwinding that, because people are like, well, then what is the truth? How do I know what you're telling me now is true? So it is a challenge to get us back to a place of being able to trust science for women's health. So all that to say that it's coming, the balance is important, and we're trying to re-educate. So
yes, especially as us perimenopausal and menopausal women are trying to support our aging parents at the same time as like hormone chaos, and it's all relevant, right? Like these, we could talk for a whole nother hour just about that.
We could.
Well, Shannon, thank you again. I will link all of your information, of course, in the show notes so that people can find you and connect to all of your wealth of resources on your website and your YouTube channel and your podcasts and everything. But I've loved chatting with you, and thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Please let us know in the comments what resonated, what you want to learn more about. I would love to hear from you about like what insights you got, what takeaways you had from our conversation today. I felt like it was really rich conversation for me, and I hope it was for you as well. So stay tuned for more.